home, and it says, the Mishnah says, one who injures another is liable to pay compensation for that injury due to 5 types of indemnity. In other words, if you hurt someone, there are 5 things you have to pay for: damage, pain, medical costs, loss of livelihood, and humiliation. Take a moment, you can cheat, you can read ahead. It's not cheating. I'll give you another 30 seconds. Don't have to be done, just enough time to think of something to share. Okay, questions, comments? What crosses your mind? Don't be afraid. What were the medical costs? Yeah, that's a good question. Okay, the Talmud will comment on that, kind of. Yeah, good. Sounds very modern. Yeah. I put something, a little takeoff on something modern. I hope I don't get in trouble for what I wrote in the. I have 1-800-CALL-SAM. 2 of his granddaughters go to our school. Any other questions, thoughts? Does it sound modern, or is it, am I pretending that? Are there things missing or things here that we wouldn't be suing for? What's that? The slave value. That's a little strange. Yeah. All right, let's start. Our Torah portion, as it started with slaves. Apparently, they knew about slaves. So how about just the list? 5 things that you have to pay for if you hurt somebody. Some of these things sound familiar: loss of wages, medical costs. If you hit somebody with your car, you damage their car, you might hurt them too. What is humiliation? What does that mean? What's that? You might embarrass. How would you embarrass them? Yeah, good question. I mean, it's pain of suffering. Maybe they're walking with a limp. Yeah, what's that? How do we know? Good. What is pain? How do you evaluate? That's what juries are deciding these days, right? How do you determine these awards? You pay for, all right, this is what it costs to fix your car, and these are your medical bills, and then then they say, well, I'm going to lose his livelihood, and they say pain and suffering. How do you evaluate pain? That's happening today, very modern. So the first question, Lynn made a comment about that. It says, and for the sake of those at home, how is payment for damage? How do we determine what's the damage we cause to a human being? Very strange answer. What's going on here? It says, if you blinded someone's eye, you severed their hand, broke their leg, and you say, how much is an eye worth? How much is a leg worth? How much is a hand worth? So you go down to the slave market, and what does a slave cost with a good arm, and what does a slave cost without that arm? Okay, does that sound right? We got a lawyer here nodding. Does that sound right? How do we do it today? How do we determine how much somebody's arm is worth? I'm sure that LeBron James probably has his body insured, right? For if he can't play basketball, well, it's enough time. He's been playing basketball for enough years. Got to think of someone who's got a longer career ahead. But right, athletes insure their body parts. Right? So what does it cost? So what do you think is going on? Why did they bring up the slave trade? What could possibly be gained by talking about how much is a slave worth with an arm and without an arm? What are they after? Fair market value. And also, it's the same for everybody. There's other opinions, by the way, in the Talmud which say it's not the same for everybody. That if to some people, an eye is worth more. Okay, depends on what you do, right? For some people, an eye is very valuable, and for other people, an eye is not so valuable. But they're saying if we could quantify it, how much is there an objective amount that an arm is worth? Maybe we would know. Certainly, again, I don't know if that's what the courts do today, or if every case is individual. So that's really one of the questions going on in this section of the Talmud is do we treat everybody different, or do we try to treat everybody the same, and which is more fair? So then we go down to the pay. I love this analogy. I love this one, even though it's so strange again. It says, if you burn somebody, you want to know how much pain is caused by a burn. So ask somebody else who has the same pain threshold, however they measure that. And then they say, how much would you take? How much money would I need to pay you in order to burn you? It reminds me a little bit of a story in my family. My dad had an Uncle Ben, and Uncle Ben would come over, and he asked my dad, he says, if you let me kick you in the behind, I'll give you a nickel. That's what he said. So when Uncle Ben came over, my dad would go over to Uncle Ben and bend over because he wanted a nickel. For a nickel, my dad would do it. If he offered him a penny, he might not do it. So we say, how much pain, what does pain cost? And again, I'm trying to figure out, if we could quantify it, then we know that we're being fair, because we don't always know. Medical costs. So it doesn't exactly say what the medical costs are, but let's look at this part. I love this part too. It says, here Steve's just sitting in front of me, so I'll use myself and Steve. So I hurt Steve, and Steve's says, well, this is my medical cost. I said, Steve, I can fix you. You don't need to go to the doctor, I'll heal you. And according to the Talmud, Steve is supposed to say, forget it. Actually, they give a great metaphor here, or a simile. It says, you are to me as a predatory lion. You already hurt me. I don't need you to heal me. And then I say, I've got a doctor who will fix you for free. You don't have to go to your doctor, I'll bring my doctor. And the Talmud says, forget it. It says, a great line here, a doctor who heals for no cost is worth nothing. You get what you pay for. So then, or if the guy says, I'll bring you a doctor, I got a doctor from Toledo. And they say, no, you don't bring the doctor from Toledo, you want the doctor from in town. Why do we want the in-town doctor? Why do you think? What's the value of having the in-town doctor? What's that? It's going to be there right away. Good. Return visit. Good. Right. In other words, yeah, if he calls from out of town, he comes here, and he doesn't do a good job, you'll never see him again. But if the doctor's got to see you in the grocery store every week, and every week you're going, look, my arm, it still hurts. Okay. The assumption, interesting assumption, I don't know if that's true today. We have people, we go out of town, and we're going to go down to go to Houston, we're going to the Mayo Clinic, go to the Cleveland Clinic, we're going to go to the best place. They're saying the best doctor is the one who is going to live in your community. Again, trying to be fair. And then if the injured party says, you know what, just give me the money and I'll take care of it. I'll take care of myself. And I don't trust you. You're just going to take the money. You're not going to go to the doctor. And then again, I'm going to feel bad all this time, and you're going to tell everybody, look, I'm still hurting. He hurt me. You got a question or a comment? Okay, just showing what hurts. And then the last question, not the last question. What's loss of livelihood? This is terrific. And again, not everybody agrees with this statement, but I love this one. So normally, if you're used to making hundreds of thousands of dollars and you can't work anymore, this is disability insurance. So there are some disability policies that you get, they cost a little more, that if you can't work in your field, they pay you. But there are other policies that say, we only pay you if you can't work at all. Maybe you can't do what you used to do, but you can do something else. And so it says here, what's the loss of livelihood? Let's assume that everybody is a watchman of cucumbers. Anybody can watch cucumbers. If you can't do that, we'll pay you what it costs to watch cucumbers. The guy says, yeah, but I played in the NBA. Well, not everybody gets to play in the NBA, but you can do something. Question? No? Anyway, you can see what we're after again. What's fair? We're not experts at this. We know people in the world who aren't treated fairly. Right? We're here mourning people today and praying for people who are not being treated with justice. And it's just coincidentally the same Shabbat where we're looking at a Torah which is saying, let's have justice in the world. Let's try to do what's fair. And our rabbis, centuries after the Torah was given and centuries ago, began the conversation which still continues today, is let's figure out what's fair. The last one was humiliation. And it just shows this question about that we struggle for the answer. And how is payment for humiliation assessed? And there's two views. We're Jews, so we have two views. It's the Talmud, we have two views. Humiliation is assessed according to a standard formula, regardless of who was humiliated. That's one view. That's not what the Mishnah originally said. If you go back to the Mishnah, no, I didn't show you that part. It says here, there's one formula. You lose your arm, there's a figure for humiliation. There's a dollar amount. That's what Rabbi Meir said. Rabbi Yehuda disagrees. Rabbi Yehuda says, the court views each person according to his stature. The great person according to his greatness, the small person according to his smallness. Says, humiliation is greater for a great person and less for a small person. That's what he says. What do you think? Which one do you like? Same price for everybody? One price fits all? Or it's according to your stature in the community? You like one price fits all? What's that? Might affect someone more. Yeah, there's another place the Talmud talks about tzedakah. It says you're supposed to give, if you support someone through tzedakah, you're supposed to support them in the manner in which they are accustomed. So if the richest guy in town loses everything, didn't have insurance, a fire destroys his house, it says we're supposed to make him feel like a rich guy. It doesn't seem right, but that's what the Talmud says. So there's a place the Talmud says there's a guy who used to be wealthy, he's not so wealthy anymore, and he comes to your door and he says, I'm used to eating, apparently this was something good, fatty meats. That's what I'm used to eating, that was supposed to be good. And you say, I can't afford fatty meat, but you're hungry, I can give you lentils. That was considered bad. Today it would be the other way. Forget the fatty meat, eat the lentils. So he eats the lentils and he dies. And somebody says, shame on you for not giving him what he's used to. No, it never occurs to anybody that maybe he died because he was eating the fatty meats. And the next voice says, the giver of the lentils says, shame on him for being accustomed to eating fatty meat. He should have had a better diet, and then what I gave him would have been just good enough. The last line, A sleeping person who humiliates another is exempt from the indemnity of humiliation. If you're sleeping and you humiliate somebody, you can't be held guilty. Why not? Because you don't know what you're doing. In other words, we only hold you guilty for that one if you intend. We know this today too. If you're driving in a car and God forbid you hurt somebody and you didn't intend to hurt them, there's still some guilt, but not the same guilt as if you intended to run that person down. If witnesses heard you say, I'm going to go run that person over. So there's a difference between guilt that's intentional or not. Okay, now the lawyer in the back. He's a real estate lawyer, okay. Right. And that, no, absolutely, 100% of that is right. First of all, yeah, for those who didn't hear Greg, is normally we talk about that, and how do we make a person whole? How do we give you back as much as we can? We can't ever, sometimes you won't get back, if you lose a limb, you don't necessarily get it back, but how do we make you whole? But then, right, how much what do we inflict upon the person who did the hurting? And there was a line that I learned in rabbinical school and trying to understand not only Jewish law and Talmud, but really for life itself. There's a difference between vengeance and justice. And when somebody hurts you, sometimes you think, I want that person to pay. I want that person to suffer. But what we really want is that person, what we talk about in the synagogue on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, if not every day, we said, what is justice? How do I atone for what I have done wrong? And some of that is money, some of that is asking for forgiveness, but it's not, let's just hurt the person as much as we can until then we're going to make them just feel as bad as we can make them feel. We want them to feel the pain and suffering that they understand what they have done wrong, and also to become whole. Tshuva is also, please. Very good. Well done. And what we see is what we have, is it fair to say that the roots of what we do, while not exactly the words that are in the Torah and in the Talmud, certainly what we struggle with today, you can be proud that our tradition is one that's been struggling with and asking these same questions. And a lot of what we do that makes our legal system work, and we hope that it works as often as it can, and we know it's not perfect, but we want it to work, is based on a lot of the wisdom that we have received. Thank you for your comments and your questions. Join us on Sunday mornings if you like, on Zoom, 10 o'clock. We're going to